All right, so every so often we have to have these talks, okay? I want to talk about the truth behind the truth because there's just so many details that are left unsaid that I haven't said on this channel before about, how I really became a millionaire by the age of 26. And I'm not the smartest person in the world by any means necessary. And to be honest, a million's not even like a big number anymore compared to some of these other guys. I'm definitely not the richest person on earth, but I do believe I could have some, impact on certain people's lives, and that's essentially why I do this in the first place. So, yeah, I made $1 million in cryptocurrency, and I built a complete business with about 29 people that get paid. And my life wasn't always rainbows and butterflies, to be completely honest with you. It was a lot of trials and tribulations, and although the internet can be like super positive all day, like everybody's super happy about making money and trying to inspire you, and that's a good thing. I do want to dive into some of the crazy madness, negative situations that I caught myself in, and I'm gonna break down like five specific, I guess you could say, lessons that I learned on my path to make $1 million that made me a better person. Number one, also inspired other people around me, made my family better people, and made my friends better people. And again, this stuff, although I have to put millionaire in the title, it's way deeper than the money. It's way deeper than the money, and I think you could benefit from that. Let's talk about like my whole journey. I'm not going to go into all the stories and stuff that I always say, but I do want to highlight some key moments in my life. So the first one is when I was actually working for a burger joint. I was working for a burger joint, and I kind of lied a little bit. Okay, I kind of lied a little bit on how to get into. I basically said I had a lot of server experience, but truth be told, I had zero server experience, and I was just struggling at the time to make rent. Basically, I had no income, and I was living by myself. I didn't want to have roommates, so it was just like very expensive for me at the time. And I got into this job. I got into this job because obviously my handsome look.
I, I, I can't believe it.
Hello, handsome.
Handsome.
No, I'm not that pretty, but seriously, like I just got into this job, and it actually ended up being a really bad situation to where I was exposed, right? Every occupation on planet Earth is difficult, and if it requires experience, and you try to finesse your way in, you will likely get exposed. And I did, and I just ended up being a very bad server. Like I'm a very bad server, and I got fired from the job. And it was like this thing switched in my brain. It was so weird, but I just got so pissed off. I don't know. Yeah, it was not optimism. It was just purely so mad that I had to figure out a way to like generate income, and I couldn't like work anymore. I got so mad that I adopted this one principle here, and I know I say it a lot, but I want to give you the perspective, the non-crypto perspective, because it basically holds true in every situation. So the one principle is I started taking responsibility for literally every variable of my existence, even if subliminally I knew that I couldn't solve certain situations. I still took responsibility for it. And what it did is it made me into a monster of work ethic. It made me into a person of positivity, like everywhere I go. And it really turned me into a superhuman when it comes to generating capital, generating cash, reading books, things like this. Turned me into something really, really good. And I want people to really understand this concept. So I always talk about the story. I'm just going to put it very briefly. I've said it a couple times. I know a lot of you watch my channel, but for the new people, basically the story goes as following. You go out to a nightclub. You go with three friends. Okay, you guys agreed you're gonna leave the nightclub at 2 a.m. They decide to leave you there. Okay, so you're leaving the nightclub by yourself at 2 a.m. And they left you. You're by yourself, and five people jump you. Okay, you can't run away from these people. They're faster than you. You obviously can't fight five people. They're stronger than you. They rob you. They take your money. They take everything. So the question you have to ask is, why did that happen? Like, who's responsible for these actions? And most people will say that number one, it's the friends left you, or number two, it's a bad part of the neighborhood, or number three, I couldn't fight them, there's five people, I couldn't get away, how could that possibly be my responsibility? And again, I do know that sometimes it's out of your control. Like most of life is out of your control. Let's just be honest. You can only control the variables that are closest to you. But if you could just take responsibility for these actions, and improve, it's almost like every negative experience you will ever encounter will turn into this positive learning curve for yourself that turn like everything negative, everything that hits you, everything that you can't control turns into a learning situation instead of just a negative, I guess you could say, feel bad for yourself situation. This literally trained me to become a better leader because sometimes, like, for example, somebody would do something completely wrong in my business, and I'll just be like, you know what, it's my problem. I should have trained you better. I should have showed you the way. I take responsibility for it. Then they feel like the burden is taken off of their shoulders, right? They feel like, okay, I could really follow this guy because, he's going to push us in the right direction. And it reinforces the positivity. So number one, it gave me these leadership abilities, and I think that's invaluable. And I think in any situation, I could really set myself apart because of the standard. And number two, like I've already said, it gave me this ridiculous work ethic because like every negative thing, like for example, when I quit that job, I decided to be like, you know what? I'm not going to rely on a job for my income. I'm going to take responsibility for it, and I'm going to figure out ways to generate income off of my own will. And that flipped everything. Even though, after making my first business, fixing iPhones and flipping them, even though I went broke after that again and had to get another job, just the action taught me and gave me this positive reinforcement that, hey, I could actually make money doing something else that has nothing to do with this third party middleman person that tells me when to go to work, when to leave work, and how much money I should make. I can literally, basically control my reality or control my finances, which, that controls the freedom. So that was like the first big, I guess you could say, light bulb, or the flip of the switch was, hey, you could really do whatever you want. And it's up to you. So you should definitely take responsibility for every action, even if it's out of your control, because again, that little, I guess you could say, that little buffer turns you into a superhuman for sure. Second one, I took on massive risk. Now, the reason why this is a big principle in, I guess you could say my journey to become a millionaire is because, very simply put, millionaires get paid millions of dollars because they do millionaire actions.
I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time.
Right? So if you own a company, for example, the big burden you have is that you got to pay your employees, okay? You got to pay your employees, you got to make sure they hit payroll, you got to make sure your business is profitable, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a massive burden. In my case, it's a massive burden to 29 people. There's 29 people I got to take care of, right? So, just that right there, I get paid because of the risk I take on. So let's think about it. The flip switch, right? You're an employee for a company. You're taking on less risk because you have a guaranteed paycheck, right? So the more risk you take on and the more risk you can mitigate and manage, the more money is directly correlated to your income. The more money you make, right? It's directly correlated, right? So for example, you guys know the story. I was working a sales job at, Sell Your Sales, selling Verizon contracts. And I literally had I remember I got I did really well my first month. I was like number 1 in Florida, number 2 in Florida. And then I took all of the money from that paycheck. It was like 10,000 or 11,000. I paid rent. I paid off some bills or whatever. And I took the rest, which was $7,000. And I just emptied it into Ethereum. I literally just bought as much Ethereum as I possibly can. And at the time, Ethereum was worth $3 to $7. So at an average price of $3 to $7, I just emptied it all. And the reason why I felt like I could take this risk on is just simply put, I bet on myself. I took responsibility. I was like, look, if I lose this $7,000, it doesn't matter because I control my reality and I can make it right back in some other way, whether it's selling contracts or whether it's starting a business, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. I bet on myself, which allows me to take on this massive risk, which obviously played out in a huge way. And I made significant amounts of money, right? So again, you got to bet on yourself, right? And the more risk you take on, the more risk you can mitigate, the better, your income becomes, right? So that was really important to me. Also, the second thing, in today's day and age in the economy and everything that's going on in the world, it's almost like risky to play it safe. So risk is almost like the new safe. If you can take on more risk, mitigate it, and become profitable, you're putting yourself in an actual strategic advantage because of the way the economy is going and how reality is just is right now, right? You can't really just bet on the government to take care of everybody, considering, the national debt. We're in trillions of dollars worth of debt. Inflation's at the highest it's been in years, in a decade, basically. So, Again, risk is the new safe. It's almost like you're forced in a situation, or if you want to even make ends meet or do something that's like slightly significant, like pay, bills for your wife or your husband, or buy your kids shoes. At this point in the economy, the wealth gap, right? The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. At this point, you have to do these things. You have to take extra responsibility. That's why we see, when the pandemic hit, we saw a lot of people, start businesses. We saw a massive amount of people start businesses. We saw people, going more remote, quitting their jobs, things like this, because it's like you're forced into that situation to control your own reality because you can't really bet on the government, all day, right? And I kept betting on myself, and what basically happened was, the risk would turn out in a negative way, right? So I'll lose all my money, whatever. The situation will go south. It'll go sour. I lose the money. And then I'm like, you know what? I'll bet on myself again. And then I try, and then I win, and then I lose 3 times more, and then I bet on myself again. And I call this like the only thing better to dollar cost average than Bitcoin is cost averaging your own skill set, right? Because every single time I made these issues or took on too much risk and things happen, I literally had to change to solve the solution, or to solve the problem, not the solution, right? I literally had to change. So I kept betting on myself and developed like this massive skill set that now is valuable to any company on planet Earth. Even if I just destroyed my whole business, liquidated all assets, I can go get a job right now, probably making $500,000 to $1 million a year just because of the type of skill set I have, right? So very, very interesting. Also, another thing, that taking on extra risk helped me with was, like, to be honest, like, it taught me not to fold under pressure. So there's a story I always tell people. I don't know if it's a story or not. It was just like a viral video. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, where you see the monk, right? There's this monk, and he's putting on a public display. And he goes, and there's a whole bunch of people surrounding him. And somebody literally dumps gasoline on this guy, right? And they light him on fire, and he commits suicide. What does that have to do with me, Alex? Well, don't kill yourself. Please don't kill yourself. But I will say that is the perfect representation of how you need to be a successful human being, or successful in your own way, financials, whatever. You have to be able to not fold under pressure. You have to be able to take this new risk, take this new pressure, and then navigate through it with a clear head. And this is one of the best skills I have ever crafted. And obviously, it can play out really good, for cryptocurrency investors, right? If you hold through the volatility, you don't have paper hands like me. I got paper hands. Okay, I got paper hands. But if you had diamond hands, you could make money doing this over a long period of time, right? So not folding under pressure, taking on this risk, and learning these skill sets was the answer that helped me become a millionaire by the age of 26 years old. So I got another one here. Discipline. I don't know how many times I gotta tell you. Now, discipline is not the ultimate answer. I just want to be clear, because there's a lot of people that make these videos and they glorify discipline like it's the greatest thing ever. It is, but discipline basically, it gets you to the starting line. Okay, so if life's a race, or a business is a race, or if your finances are a race, right? Discipline gets you to the starting line. It's basically like you showing up, right? So eventually, discipline leads to obsession, which we'll talk about is kind of the next one. But like, for example, if I feel like I'm falling off track, which, in recent history, probably in the last month, I felt like I was probably not going as hard as I should, then I just flip the switch and I'm like, all right, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., discipline, work out every day, discipline, drink a gallon of water, discipline. If I force myself into these actions, everything else falls in line. So this discipline, I guess you could say, commonality in my life, like pushing myself to exceed other people's expectations, and even my own expectations, and being disciplined in what I do, leads to the result of obsession, which we'll talk about. But yeah, developing more focus, like meditating, trying to concentrate for a longer period of time, and having discipline with that, reading more books, working out, things like this will push you in the right direction. And I can't stress it enough. It's literally more important than trading crypto. So you must have discipline in what you do, and you must be relentless in your discipline, which will ultimately lead to obsession, right? And there's kind of a formula I've created. I don't know if anybody else has created this before, but obsession plus focus equals the result. So if you think about, like, life being a marathon, right? And you're running this race, and I hate the saying, I really do. I hate it when they say, life's it's a marathon, not a race, right? It's a marathon, not a race. Although that's true, it implies that you have to go slower, right? So, for example, people don't really jog marathons. And I know I saw some people in the comments like, Alex, you don't run. I do. I've ran a marathon. I have people in the office that run marathons and 100-milers. So I have a good bit of experience. To me, a 9-minute pace is like It's not super fast, but it's like I'm pushing it, right? But to these the best athletes in the world that get the gold medals and that actually win, they're running at a 4-minute pace, 5-minute pace for marathons. So when you say things like, "Oh, it's not a race, it's a marathon, take it slow," that's BS. Discipline gets you to the starting line, but when you're starting the race, you must be elegant in your approach. So, for example, it's not just showing up to the gym and playing basketball. Like in a case, I got this from a book talking about Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and this is where like it really changed for me. But these guys didn't just show up to the court at 5 a.m. They showed up to the court at 5 a.m. and the practice was extremely focused and extremely strategic. Like they didn't just go through the motions. There wasn't like discipline, you just go through the motions, right? They didn't just go through the motions. They showed up and then they exhilarated extreme energy, extreme focus. So bringing it back, obsession plus focus equals the result. So you use discipline to get yourself to even get to the starting line, and then you obsess over it and focus like a madman on specific downfalls in your game. Like if we're talking about basketball, is your left hand weak? They're focusing like madmen on their left hand. Like it's not going to be a weakness anymore. You focus on all your weaknesses. You become obsessed about it, and then you get the result. And those two kind of go in conjunction. And I learned this when trying to scale my company. I learned this, when I made Fundamental Secrets for the first time, and I scaled my company, and I got these resources, and I could hire people and stuff like that. I had to become a super professional. I had to optimize to the 0.001%. Most people think about just showing up. I had to think about the little minute details that nobody else thought about, and that's what turned me into an actual professional, and that's where I actually got serious results. Okay, so that was a really important thing, which brings me to my last point. You have to be elegant in your execution. Okay, so again, obsession plus focus equals result. Okay, but the obsession and focus is ultimately, you have to turn it into basically a crystallized process of elegance. Okay. And what that basically means is, I don't know if you guys ever heard of like the smartest billionaires in the world. They say something and it goes over your head. And it's so simple. It's like, it's not real. They'll say something like, "Hey, drink water." And you're like, I've heard that 1,000 million times. But their strategies and the way they approach business or the way they approach life, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, is extremely elegant. Like you don't see Michael Jordan doing and one moves. He's making very simple, very, very simple, efficient moves, right, in his game to where he doesn't waste energy. It's elegant. It's very extremely simple, extremely simple. So again, putting yourself through this, right? So first you got to have the discipline. You got to force yourself, right? You got to force yourself hardcore to become a better person. Then once you show up to the finish line, you have to exert massive energy and obsession to even compete with the best in the world. And then of doing that for a long period of time gets you to the point where you can make something that's elegant and you can make something that's seriously crystallized. And I think I'm transitioning to the elegance with my strategies and what we do with Fundamental Secrets. We have the greatest fundamental analysis on planet Earth in cryptocurrency. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And we're crystallizing that. And we're crystallizing the results we got from the course and stuff like that to become an elegant solution. And this is where I go from making 5 to 10 million to making 500 million. Right? This is like the next jump. And obviously, I'm not talking about the next year. I'm talking about the next 30 years of my goal to be a billionaire. You guys all know. You should know I have like massive ambitions, but that's kind of the last step. So in general, just to recap, guys, look, I took responsibility for everything and I changed my life. That responsibility turned into me taking on more risk. Me taking on more risk turned me into a superhuman. And I had to like continuously, get the actual discipline to be able to pull these things off. Then the discipline turned into basically obsession and focus. And this obsession and focus turned into an elegant strategy that now, thousands of people benefit from. And I'm able to change a lot of people. And the funny part is that technically we didn't talk about anything finance, right? Which is, the title is How I Become a Millionaire by 26. So just think about that, right? Just think about, it's not really about the money. I want you to think about money like a kind of like a girl. If you're a guy watching this, right? It's the same thing for girls and guys, right? If you're a guy and you want to get a girl and you act desperate and you try everything in your power and just like I see some messages all the time. Like people are messaging me these 3 paragraphs and they're like, "Oh man, I'm broke. Something happened in my life," and they're giving me a sob story and all these things. It's like, bro, if you put that effort into something else, you would probably already make money. You don't have to ask me. But the point is, okay, the simple point is that if you are trying to get a girl and you're super thinking about only getting a girl, you're not going to get her, right? It's the same thing with money. If you're super thinking about how can I make the most money, it's all, if everything you thought process about money, you're not going to make money. You have to think about what's a problem that I can solve. It's that simple. What's a problem that I can solve? Then I'm going to solve it to the best of abilities. And you focusing on those other things the world will say, hey, let's give this guy money because he's solving some serious problem. Let's allocate energy and resources to this guy because he, solved this problem. And again, like, I practice what I preach. So everything I'm telling you right now is from my experiences and my experiences only. I read some of it in a book, but I actually executed. So yeah, I can say it's my experience. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you like the quality of this content, hit like. If you don't, leave some constructive criticism. Subscribe for more video updates. And like I always say, if you don't get with it, you will get left behind. Catch you guys in the next video.